Today, we're diving into a legal case that is just, well, it's pretty wild. The whole thing hinges on a single document, a reply brief, filed in the Idaho Supreme Court. We're going to explore how one person, representing himself, built a case that doesn't just challenge the loss of his home, but actually puts the entire legal process on trial.
And here it is, the bombshell that kicks the whole thing off. This single sentence from Jeremy Bass's brief, that's the core of his entire counterattack. See, he's not just arguing about some minor procedural point. He's alleging that the very act they used to seize his property was illegal from the very start.
So, why is that one sentence so critical? Well, it all comes down to this legal concept called mootness. The other side's whole strategy was pretty simple. Take the property, then turn to the Supreme Court and say, hey, it's over. There's nothing left for you to decide. But Bass comes back and says, whoa, not so fast. You can't make a case moot by using an illegal act. And that's what some legal experts call strategic mooting, using a writ that was never even legally served.
But here's the thing. That unserved writ was really just the final act in this drama. Bass argues that the real problem started much, much earlier, and he says he has the evidence to prove the whole thing was predetermined. So, we're shifting gears now, from the eviction itself back to the alleged auction fraud that set this whole chain of events in motion.
Okay, what's so fascinating about this slide is just how specific that number is. This was the exact amount, right down to the penny, of a pre-printed cashier's check that the winning bidder brought to a public auction. I mean, it's not a round number, it's not an estimate, it's this exact figure. So the question is, how could they possibly know?
And this is where the whole argument becomes almost a math problem. According to the forensic experts cited in the case, the odds of this happening just by chance are, well, virtually zero. It strongly implies that the bidder knew the secret opening bid amount before the auction even started.
And then, you get what is essentially a confession that ties it all together. In their own court filings, the winning bidders actually admitted to contacting the trustee beforehand to get that opening bid. So you have the admission of getting non-public info, combined with a check for the exact amount. Bass argues this just completely destroys their status as a good faith purchaser and points directly to a rigged sale.
So with that pretty explosive evidence on the table, let's take a look at how Bass, a guy with no formal legal training, dismantled the sophisticated legal arguments that were thrown at him. This is honestly a masterclass in pro se defense.
One of the key claims made against Bass was that he had abandoned his home. Now, he countered this not with emotion, but by pulling out Black's Law Dictionary. He drew this really sharp line between a temporary residence, where you might be staying, and your legal domicile, which is your one true and permanent home. He argued that while he might have had a temporary residence, his domicile, the property in question, had never, ever changed.
Now, there's a common legal tactic, especially when you're up against someone representing themselves, called the waiver trap. The idea is to argue that an issue wasn't raised perfectly in the lower court, so you can't argue it on appeal. It's a form of procedural gatekeeping. But Bass methodically showed how his filings explicitly listed every single issue, from the to-the-penny check to being denied discovery. He basically shut that door completely.
This next point really highlights what Bass framed as a fundamental violation of his rights. The court told him, you need more proof of fraud. But then they denied him the legal process of discovery, which is how you get that proof. It's a classic procedural trap. Demand the evidence, but then block the only path to actually finding it.
All right, let's zoom out now, because Bass's brief argues this isn't just about one property or one little mistake. He starts presenting evidence to suggest there are systemic problems here, from judicial bias all the way to multi-state patterns of really suspicious activity.
Bass revealed that the presiding judge had actually been involved in his prior, really contentious divorce case, a case that involved the very same property and some pretty heavy allegations about his character. Now, here's the crucial part. The judge disclosed a relationship with another party in the case, but not her history with Bass. He argues this is a structural error that taints every single ruling with the appearance of bias.
And the argument gets even bigger. Bass laid out evidence of a pattern that stretches all the way to Utah. In at least 9 other cases, the very same law firm acted as the supposedly neutral foreclosure trustee, and the auctions were consistently won by the same 2 companies who, it turns out, the law firm was also representing as legal counsel. The inherent conflict of interest is just staggering.
So how did the opposition respond to all this evidence? Well, Bass argues they used a classic rhetorical strategy.
They just dismissed it all as a conspiracy theory. Instead of actually refuting the facts, the check, the admission, the multi-state pattern, they just attacked the framing. It's a tactic Bass called out as prejudicial conduct, something designed to poison the well.
So the big question is, why does one foreclosure case in Idaho matter so much? It's because the arguments raised in this one brief touch on these huge fundamental issues of property rights, judicial integrity, and whether the legal system is truly accessible to everyone.
And this term is really key to understanding what's at stake here. Bass wasn't just representing himself for fun. He was, per force, pro se. He was reportedly rejected by over 125 law firms. He was effectively locked out of the legal system. His situation, he argues, wasn't a choice he made, but a consequence of the system's failure to provide him with representation.
This slide highlights just a stunning contradiction right from the court record. The opposing counsel, a seasoned attorney, admitted in open court that Bass's arguments were logical and sound, and yet the district court turned right around and sanctioned Bass, ruling that those same arguments were frivolous. So, how can something be both logical and sound and also frivolous at the exact same time?
The answer might lie in the judge's own words. The court actually admitted on the record to giving Bass's detailed filings only a cursory look. Legally, a finding of frivolity requires a deep, thorough analysis of the arguments. An admitted cursory review simply does not meet that standard, which suggests the sanction was imposed without a full and complete understanding of the case.
So when you put it all together, this reply brief is so much more than a response. It's a comprehensive indictment. It's alleging an illegal seizure, admitted collusion backed by mathematical proof, patterns of what looks like racketeering, judicial conflicts, and the systemic weaponization of legal procedure against a citizen who is denied representation.
And that leaves us with the central question this case poses, not just to the Idaho Supreme Court, but to the entire legal profession. In the pursuit of fairness, when the rigid application of procedure seems to directly conflict with the substance of justice, which one should ultimately give way?